Hello, hello, hello. It's TPP. We are here for the hearing that the Democrats had, the shadow hearing that the Democrats had Friday. So before we get into this meeting, please hit the like and the subscribe and the share button, please, and thank you. I appreciate it. I want you to pay attention to what they're actually talking about when we get into this hearing, when this hearing starts, okay? Listen to exactly what they're talking about, because this is not Washington arguing over some policy that never reaches the front door, right? They're talking about your grocery bill, your host costs, healthcare, electricity, all of those things. Trump told America he was going to bring prices down. So now we need to look at what has actually happened for 2 years under his policies and whether working people are better off under his policies. House Oversight Democrats held this field hearing in Las Vegas on Friday and called it a bad bet for America, Trump's attack on affordability. Now, understand what we're watching. This was organized by Democrats, so they absolutely have a political argument to make against Trump, right? I ain't going to pretend otherwise, but that doesn't mean we dismiss the testimony. We listen to what they present, separate the political talking points from the facts, and ask the questions that matter. Does the evidence match what Americans are experiencing in their own life? That's what we want to find out. And that's what we're going to do with this hearing. I'm going to let you hear these people speak for themselves, and then we're going to stop and talk about what they're saying, because politicians can argue all day long about whether the economy is wonderful or terrible, but your checking account doesn't care which policy or party you come from. Okay, let's get started. So we're going to see if Trump's policies are making America more affordable, while Americans are still getting squeezed at the pump, grocery store. Then we got to explain the contradiction. We got to explain what's going on. Okay, let me move it up a little bit. Here we go. Hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. I hate to pull it down, but I'm going to push it anyway. Okay, here we go.
To welcome everyone, of course, to Las Vegas, and more importantly, to a really critical hearing for the Oversight Committee. Our hearing today is called A Bad Bet for America, the President's Attack on Affordability. And I want to just begin by thanking our witnesses that are here, which I know we will introduce in just a minute. We're here on behalf of the Oversight Committee, and this hearing is important for us as Oversight Democrats as we prepare and continue to investigate the attacks on the American worker, and certainly the way in this country that working class people continue to struggle. And yet the very rich and the billionaires in this country continue to get more wealthy. I want to thank our Nevada Democratic congressional colleagues, most importantly, for being here. It's clear that Las Vegas and broader Nevada are well represented in Congress. Of course, we're here in Congressman Stephen Horsford's district today, but of course are also joined by Congresswoman Susie Lee and Congresswoman Dina Titus. And I want to thank them for being here. I also want to thank our oversight members that are here, including our oversight Democrats, Congressman Maxwell Frost and Congresswoman Emily Randall. And they, of course, are here with us as well. I'm going to make some opening remarks, and then I'm going to have our members from the Nevada delegation make some brief opening remarks. And then after that, I'm going to introduce our witnesses. And then, of course, all of us will have a series of questions. And I do want to thank some of the workers that are here as well that have joined us to hear this. And we are, like I mentioned to the committee, this hearing is being streamed on multiple platforms, including Midas Touch, Brian Taylor Cohen, Jim Acosta, Katie Fang, and a variety of other news outlets across the country. I want to thank them for streaming this hearing. I want to begin because we're here today because the American people are struggling and they need the help of our government. Now, when you look at what's happening right now, the rent's too high, the groceries are too high, mortgages are too high, rent's too high. But it seems that the president doesn't care. He seems checked out. He's obsessed with his own ego and monuments in DC. He's lying to the American public, and he can't deliver results. We know that in 2024, he promised to end inflation. During his campaign, he promised to be focused on affordability. He said he'd cut electric prices in half. He, in fact, promised to cut the price of owning a home in half, and he promised gas would be $2 a gallon. And worst of all, he has called the affordability crisis that we are in a hoax. This is not a hoax. And the bottom line is that the American people are struggling. And as the American people struggle, the president's family, donors, and those at the very top continue to get more wealthy. And let's be clear, the president is not just denying the American public relief. He's actually causing the issues around affordability. We have a reckless war with Iran that the American people don't support. And we're spending $1 billion a day with no end in sight on that war. We know that the war has driven prices up, the tariffs are out of control, and every single American is paying for the administration's incompetence when it comes to this war. And he's targeting Canada, an ally, a friend, a neighbor, with a trade war for no reason. Tariffs have hit consumers and businesses. He's also cut $7.6 billion from clean energy projects across all of our states for no reason. American families are staying up at night wondering how they are going to get by. Workers are wondering why their shifts are being cut. And it's because the very wealthy continue to take from working class people and middle class families across this country, including people that need food assistance. Over 4 million people have lost their food assistance, and many are now skipping meals worrying about when their kids are going to have their next full meal. That is not acceptable to those of us here at this hearing. Now, while these policies hammer every single working family in the United States, the president and his family seem to be only out for themselves. He's enriched himself by $2 billion in just 12 months. Now, Jared Kushner got a $2 billion investment from the Saudis just months after leaving the White House in the first administration. We know the president's sons are opening properties across the world, making money from crypto schemes. And in fact, we know that Don Jr. is actually sitting on boards of companies that are going into contracts with the federal government and the Department of Defense. $2 billion richer the president is now. And look, I think all of us believe that when you work hard in this country, you should be able to get ahead. But the president is getting ahead at the expense of working class people, and that needs to end. And while the American people struggle, it seems that the president is really just focused on one thing, and that is these monuments in Washington, D.C. A $14 million reflecting pool, demolishing possibly the Kennedy Center and putting his name on it, an arch across from Arlington National Cemetery that is a dishonor to the veterans who were there. This is someone that's obsessed with himself, his vanity, and someone not focused on the American public. We need to end the attacks on the worker and start focusing on getting money in the pockets of American families. And with that, I want to turn this over to Congressman Stephen Horsford, and again, also welcome him and thank you for having us today here in your district.
Well, thank you so much to the next chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Mr. Garcia, and the members of House Oversight for hosting this important field hearing here in the 4th Congressional District, and to my colleagues, Congresswoman Susie Lee and Dina Titus, who are working together to make sure that we lift up the voices of working people. Let me say plainly what my fellow Nevadans have been telling me. The rent is too damn high, groceries are unaffordable, and insurance of all kind is astronomical. And instead of doing something about it, the president, who's been here several times this year and last, and Speaker Johnson, who just left, keep trying to promote their one big betrayal of a bill. But notice who they are not talking to when they come. You won't see them talking to the workers or the small businesses that actually make Las Vegas run. So let's keep one simple question in mind throughout this hearing. Who is paying the price for this administration's economic mess and the chaos that Republicans in Congress have caused by not putting a check on this administration? Because in Nevada, the answer is pretty clear. And the president's claim that this affordability crisis is a hoax only makes that reality more insulting. In fact, it's a betrayal to the people of our community. Tell that to the small business that had to shutter its doors in the Arts District because of its tariffs that it never budgeted for. Tell that to the working mother or father skipping meals to afford baby formula and having to be in lines at our local food bank. Tell that to the workers and the small businesses feeling the consequences of a weakened tourism economy. We call it the Trump slump. Fortunately, it's the workers who make Nevada prosper that are going to lead us out of this economic comeback. Last year, Las Vegas saw 3.1 million fewer visitors, Mr. Chairman, a nearly 8% drop, and our worst decline outside the pandemic. And as you noted in your comments, largely from international travel, including from Canada, one of our most trusted partners. Las Vegas is the canary in the coal mine. To this administration, these may be just stats, but to Nevadans, they are their paycheck. This is their livelihood. Fewer visitors mean fewer restaurant tables. It means fewer hotel rooms booked. It means fewer shifts worked by housekeepers and cooks and bartenders, servers and casino workers. And it means fewer tips. And that's what's also insulting. The tax breaks for the billionaires was permanent. Meanwhile, any relief for tip workers or other working people expire in just a couple of years. Fewer hours and fewer tips don't pay the rent. This administration's contempt for working people runs all the way to the top. They may not care about what happens to a coffee shop in Las Vegas or the paycheck of a culinary worker on the Strip, but Nevadans do. And thankfully, because of you, Mr. Chairman, so does everyone on this dais today. That is why I'm grateful to the witnesses who are here today, because this committee need to hear from you. I wish the administration would listen about how their policies actually are affecting the people that you're here to represent and speak on behalf of. And I'm honored to hear from you, to listen to you, to learn from you, and to lift up your concerns as we fight to make Nevada and America more affordable. With that, I yield back.
Thank you, Congressman. Congressman Dina Titus.
Well,
3.1 million jobs or less tourism to come to Las Vegas since Trump has been in office. So they done lost plenty of business. Las Vegas done lost a lot of business. A lot of business.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ranking Member. Thank you for bringing your Oversight Committee to Southern Nevada so you can see firsthand how we are being impacted. I represent District 1. My office is right upstairs on the 3rd floor, so if you need anything, we are there to help. District
Information.
1 goes all the way down the strip to the airport, out through Henderson, to Boulder City, out to Lake Mead and the dam, back up through the east side. And everywhere I go in that district, even though it's very different and very diverse, people are saying the same thing. We need help. The government's not listening, and it's getting harder and harder to make it through the day. And indeed, that is the case with the policies that are coming out of this administration. They'd rather put Trump's name on the Kennedy Center than put your name on a check. And they'd rather build a monument than build a new school or a street or a facility that we need for solar power. That's the kind of priorities they have. The president, when he ran, said during his campaign, I'm going to bring prices down on day one. Well, they haven't come down. They've shot way up. When's the last time you filled up your gas tank? You know how expensive it is. Have you tried to buy a steak at the grocery store or even just some baby formula? You know how expensive it is. And people are worried little children can't learn if they go to school with their stomach growling. And seniors who are on Medicaid are so afraid they're going to get thrown out of a nursing home. What are they going to do? Move back in their family that's already strapped or be thrown out on the street? These are the things that are making people worried. And these are the things that Democrats are addressing. If we can go back after this election and turn some of those programs around, restore some of those programs that people need just to get by, put in place some of those environmental protections or food protections. People are afraid even if they could afford groceries, they're scared to eat them. Who wants to eat blueberries or jalapenos or lettuce that hasn't been inspected because they've stripped all those inspectors out of our health departments?
No, that's
You're
right.
getting it at both ends, and that's what we're trying to address. We don't want the American public to be hungrier, to be sicker, to be poorer. We want to see us all prosper, and that's why we're here to hear from you. Take these messages back. You know it. You're living it. You're on the ground every single day, and so that's got to be what they hear in Washington. Whether it'll do any good or not with this crew while they're out painting those horses gold, it doesn't mean a lot to some of us, and we want to make those changes. So thank you for being here, and thank our panelists for sharing your story.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And now we'll hear from Congresswoman Susie Lee.
Thank you, Ranking Member, and I want to thank the other members of the Oversight Committee for being here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I don't think there's any other community in the country that has been impacted more by this administration's reckless policies than right here in Las Vegas. From healthcare to groceries to utilities and rent, life is just too expensive for so many working families here in Southern Nevada. And instead of doing anything to lower costs, it seems like this administration and Republicans have doubled down on harmful policies that are just making life even more expensive, in making it almost impossible for families to stretch their paychecks each and every month. You know, we've all been here in Southern Nevada now for most of the month, and whether it is a nursing instructor who literally is getting killed by junk fees charged to her by rental companies, or not being able to afford a down payment, just even to rent a home, or the senior who is afraid she's going to lose her ability to drive because of the rising cost of insurance, or the mother who just really, on top of having to pay additional money to send her kids to school for school supplies, just doesn't know how she's going to be able to feed them each and every month. And that's really what this administration has done to working families. And between that and the impact of tariffs and the drop in international visitors that is literally killing jobs as we speak, this administration and the Trump slump has had real lasting impacts on families here in Southern Nevada. And by the way, on top of it, they doubled down and passed their big, beautiful bill a year ago to say, you know what, you don't really need Medicaid. poor kids, we're going to take away your food that you need to live a healthy life. And we're going to turn around and give tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans. Donald Trump campaigned on lowering costs, keeping us out of forever wars. But yet here we are in the middle of another forever war that is increasing your gas prices. On top of it, all of these tax breaks that were handed away to the wealthiest Americans, all it's doing is basically saying to our young people, you're going to foot the bill because it's adding more to our national debt. So Liz and Donald, thank you for being here. Thank you for your work and helping advocate to build an economy that works for all of us. Ted and Phyllis, you've been tireless in your efforts to support our working families and our union members at Culinary and SEIU. This is a city of labor, and the men and women of labor have built this city and keep it running. Looking forward to hearing from you. And of course, Wani, I had the opportunity to be at Mothership, your small business, and have heard from you time and again on just how, it's not just about tourists who aren't coming here, because when our workers see their shifts cut, see their hours cut, then they're less likely to go to your coffee shop and, pay for your coffee and go to our restaurants. And that's what we're seeing. We've seen over 1,000 small restaurants close here in Southern Nevada, just as this administration has taken control. So we're looking forward to this hearing, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you again to our incredible members from this state. And I want to introduce our witnesses, and then we're going to have opening testimony from each of them, ideally to about 4 minutes each. Let me introduce our witnesses. First is Elizabeth Pancotti, who is the Vice President of Policy, Advocacy, and Research at Groundwork Collaborative. She previously advised Senator Bernie Sanders on economic policy and has conducted economic research on healthcare, unemployment insurance, and education policy. So thank you, Elizabeth. Next is Ted Papageorge, who is Secretary Treasurer and former President of the Culinary Workers Union Local 226, and has also served as a picket captain, is a Las Vegas native, and 42-year member of the Culinary Union. Worked as a busboy, a barber, and has advocated for the union's 60,000 members on wages, healthcare, and benefits. And thank you, Ted, for being here. Next up is Phyllis Mallory Edmondson, who has lived in Vegas for 30 years and has worked in healthcare, labor advocacy, and community service. Since 2015, she has worked as a unit clerk at University Medical Center of Southern Nevada and serves as an SEIU local executive board member and shop steward. We also have Wani Romero, who is founder and CEO of Mothership Coffee, a Vegas neighborhood cafe focused on community development. Her work centers on economic power for women and underrepresented leaders. She serves on Nevada's Commission on Minority Affairs and leads its legislative subcommittee. And finally, we have Donald Sherman, who is an expert in government ethics, rule of law, and anti-corruption policy, and it works on issues of accountability and democratic institutions. Since joining Crew in 2018, he has focused on government ethics, accountability, and reducing the influence of money in politics.
We could not have gotten this far out of field if Donald Trump hadn't found good men. Good men, there's good men allowing Donald Trump to do what he's doing. Not that they're bad men, it's just that they're not doing nothing. There's a big difference.
Just a really incredible group of witnesses. Thank you all for being here. And again, if you're able to.
Can y'all hear me? I'm sorry, I'm talking and I don't know whether I can be heard. Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me.
Keep to 4 minutes. That would be ideal. And I'm going to start for opening comments from Ms. Pancotti.
Thank you, Ranking Member Garcia and distinguished members of the committee. I'm excited to be here to testify today about the affordability crisis that is facing American families. Despite promising to lower costs on day one, President Trump has spent the last 19 months advancing an economic agenda that does nothing but make it harder for American families to make ends meet. According to recent polling, 7 in 10 voters rate the economy as poor, and nearly half say that they are worse off financially than they were a year ago. Between his pointless and reckless foreign wars, his chaotic tariffs, and his draconian cuts to the very programs designed to help Americans afford basic essentials like groceries and healthcare, President Trump has driven up virtually every single line in the American budget. Since the start of his war in Iran, the average American household has paid at least $700 more for gas and fuel. And Trump's tariffs cost the typical American family more than $1,700 last year and are on pace to cost an additional $2,500 each this year. There's perhaps nowhere that these price hikes are felt more persistently than the grocery store, where most families feel the squeeze in the checkout line at least once a week. Staples like beef, coffee, and tomatoes have all posted double-digit price increases in the past year alone. And as the school year kicks off, research from Groundwork and the Century Foundation finds that packing healthy lunches will run parents $400 more per child over the course of this school year. Lunchbox staples like blueberries, sandwich bread, animal crackers, and lunch meat have increased by as much as 48% over the past year. To make matters worse, the Republican budget law has already stripped food assistance benefits from 5 million Americans, including 1.5 million children. Here in Nevada, the number of SNAP participants has declined by more than 20% since last summer. And the pain hardly stops at the grocery store. At the gas pump, Americans just experienced the most expensive August on record, paying around $4.10 per gallon. In Nevada, gas prices are over $4.80 per gallon. This forces families to make difficult decisions about driving their kids to see grandma or getting to work every morning. For too many Americans, housing costs are a significant stressor, which has only gotten worse during this administration. Mortgage rates remain over 6.5%, while the average monthly apartment rent is now over $1,700 per month, up 18% since Trump took office. And the cost of keeping the lights and the AC on is out of reach for many households, which has been made worse by this administration's cancellation of clean energy projects here in Nevada and across the country. Since the end of 2024, the average monthly utility bill has risen 3 times as fast as overall inflation, driving roughly 14 million Americans to collections for overdue utility debt. Finally, on healthcare, the picture is perhaps the bleakest of all. For those who receive health insurance coverage through their employers, premiums are rising at their fastest pace in 15 years, squeezing both employers and workers. This year, employers and workers will pay more than $28,000 per family for insurance coverage. And for millions of Americans who purchase their health insurance directly from the Affordable Care Act marketplace, their costs have increased nearly 60% this year. Enrollees are paying more and more each month for worse coverage. Average deductibles jumped to a record high of nearly $3,800, which a family could have to pay unexpectedly if their child simply falls and breaks their arm at the playground. The Republican budget law will ultimately force 17 million Americans to lose their health coverage in coming years. In the face of rising prices at every turn, Americans are being forced to stretch already thin paychecks past their breaking point. And while families struggle, President Trump says he doesn't consider their financial situations even a little bit. It's no wonder why 8 in 10 voters say that this administration is not focused enough on lowering prices. I appreciate the committee's focus on the harmful effects of this administration's agenda on everyday Americans, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Pancotti. Next is Mr. Papa George, now recognized for your testimony.
Thanks. Good morning, Ranking Member Garcia, Congresswoman Titus, Congressman Horsford, Congresswoman Lee, Congresswoman Randall, and Congressman Frost. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today on the Trump slump here in Las Vegas and how it's hurting our tourism economy and our members. Last year, Las Vegas saw the largest ever single year non-COVID drop in visitor volume going back to 1970. Visitation dropped by over 7% in 2025, with over 3 million fewer visitors compared to 2024. Total passenger count at Harry Reid International Airport has been declining for 18 straight months, and the year-to-year date count through July is down 6.9%. Compared to last year, and things are not getting any better anytime soon. The LVCVA tracking data indicate we will basically have no growth in annual visitor volume this year. So what caused the Trump slump? Well, when you combine the attacks on our best allies, our strongest allies like Canada and Mexico, who also happen to be our best customers here in the state of Nevada, in this country, with this brutal immigration deportation policy that has been essentially arresting dishwashers and landscapers instead of focusing strictly on criminals as promised. It's no surprise when you make it clear that folks are not welcome in this country, that they choose to go somewhere else. And some folks say it's only Vegas, but according to the World and Travel and Tourism Council, overall U.S. visitor numbers declined by over 5%, almost 6% in 2025 compared to 2024. And international visitor spending fell almost 5%. And the U.S. was the only major tourism destination in the entire world that saw a decline in tourism in 2025. Even though the global tourism industry is up 4%, China, for example, up 13% in tourism. So here in Las Vegas, fewer visitors to Las Vegas mean fewer customers in the casinos and hotels, fewer covers, fewer tips in the restaurants, and all that means fewer hours and shifts and layoffs for our members. And what's more, prices are still too high, and they did not come down on day one of this new administration as promised. We surveyed our members last year about expenses. 94% said grocery prices were too high. 86% said car insurance, they can't afford it. 79% said their power bills are unaffordable. 66% said their homeowner insurance have went up. And we know some have doubled over the past several years. And things has gotten worse this year. According to CBS News, these are the price changes from January 2025 through July 2026. Coffee up 33%, ground beef up 24%, electricity up 10.6%, gasoline of all types on average up over 27%, and there's no relief in sight. And July inflation was at 3.4%. Here in Las Vegas, regular gas now costs close to $5 a gallon, almost a full dollar more than a year ago. Went as high as $5.28 in the spring. Rents have almost doubled since the pandemic and have not come down meaningfully since January. Wall Street investors are still buying up houses in this community. The first half of 2026, corporate investors owned nearly 30% of all single-family homes in the Las Vegas area. And when Congress passed a bipartisan bill, this administration refused to sign it, clearly addressing affordability in the housing market. And this Trump slump is not a high priority for them. And you mentioned, Congressman, no taxes on tips. It's a highly flawed bill. There's 100% marriage tax, auto gratuities not covered. You have to extract them. And as you said, it's temporary. And it's really hard if you're not making tips. A tax credit really doesn't mean a whole lot. I think a lot about our members' financial situation a lot. I believe that's what most leaders in our community and our nation do as well. But we need our government to take concrete steps to get us out of this Trump slump, to grow the Las Vegas and Nevada tourism and the national tourism economy again, and come with meaningful ways to make life more affordable for working people. Right now, working families are hurting. This country is off the rails, and we've got to get it back on track. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that testimony. Ms. Mallory Edmondson, you're now
Back
recognized for
on
your
track.
testimony.
We need to.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Phyllis Mallory Edmondson. I'm a healthcare worker at University Medical Center, where I've worked for the past 10 years, and I proudly serve on the executive board of SCIU Local 1107. Service Employees International Union 1107 is the largest healthcare union in Nevada and the second largest union in the state. We represent the full range of care, nurses, techs, social workers, public health workers, and public health housing staff. We are the entire triangulation of social welfare services from our hospitals to child protective services. And right now, the One Big Beautiful Bill's Medicaid cuts are hitting our members harder than almost anyone else in this state. Nevada hospitals stand to lose over $300 million next year alone. Home care workers already earning barely $16 an hour are losing hours and losing jobs. And nearly 1 in 3 home care workers are on Medicaid themselves. So when Medicaid shrinks, our own members lose their coverage too. This isn't a distant threat, it is already here. Hospitals across our state, like Battle Mountain General and Humboldt General, are at risk of closing their doors or cutting the services people can't live without: labor and delivery, emergency rooms, mental health care, the home care program that keeps our most vulnerable neighbors safe in their own homes run on Medicaid dollars. And a large share of that funding comes from the form of federal government. So when Washington cuts Medicaid, that lifeline gets cut too. This is an affordability crisis the One Big Beautiful Bill created, and it threatens care, quality care, and the lifelines our patients depend on. The cuts are coming, and right here at UMC where I work, Medicaid supplemental payments make up 34% of our hospital's total revenue, and nearly half of our patients rely on Medicaid. That is not a hospital that can absorb these cuts without patients and workers feeling it. I am also a mother and a grandmother. Today, I want to talk about affordability. Affordability is not a statistic for working families. It's the choice between filling a prescription and filling the refrigerator. It's the choice between paying rent and going to the doctor. It's the fear of opening a medical bill while you're already trying to keep the lights on. People don't stop being sick because they can't afford to be sick, so they delay care. They skip medications, and sometimes what could have been treated early becomes an emergency. No mother should wonder if she can afford to take her child to the doctor. No grandmother should have to choose between her medication and her bills. In the 10 years that I've been at UMC, I've watched patients go from asking, when can I be seen, to asking, can I afford to be seen? I've seen more patients hesitate before agreeing to a test, hesitate before filling a prescription, and ask us to just treat what hurts the most instead of everything that's actually wrong. I've seen patients delay follow-up care because they're afraid of what the bill will look like. And by the time they come back, what could have been simple has become an emergency. The system has gotten more complicated, not less. More paperwork, more prior authorizations, more phone calls just to get someone the care they already qualify for. Every one of these extra steps is a chance for a patient to fall through the cracks. I am concerned, and I see it every week. Patients with insurance are still getting hit with bills they can't pay because deductibles keep climbing and Medicaid coverage keeps shrinking. I've asked patients, ask me to write down the cheapest option of the best option because that's what they can afford. Medical debt isn't rare anymore. It's common. It's the mother who puts off her mammogram. It's the grandfather who cuts his pill in half to make the bottle last longer. It's the family on a payment plan for a bill they never saw coming. When Medicaid gets cut, the way this bill cut is, that doesn't disappear.
I walked into a doctor's office and I just went there for a simple to look at, hey, I have a little back pain. Can you look at it? I was like, what is my deductible? What will it cost me to be seen today? She said $325. I said, I got to pay that right now. She was like, yeah, right now. I was like, oh, hell no. Hell no. That's crazy. Doctor bills done got outrageous.
It gets pushed onto patients as higher bills, and it gets pushed onto hospitals like UMC, which end up absorbing care nobody can pay for. That is not sustainable, and it is not right. This is bigger than a healthcare policy. It's a family issue. It is a workforce issue. It is a community issue, and ultimately, it is about dignity. People should be able to work hard, take care of their families, and get the health care they need, choosing between their health and basic necessities of life. We can do better. Our families deserve better. Our patients deserve better. And the healthcare workers who care for them deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that testimony. Ms. Romero, you're now recognized for your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you, Oversight Committee and our wonderful Congress people for the state of Nevada. My name is Wani Romero, and I am the owner and CEO of Mothership Coffee. And I wanted to really tell you today about the anatomy of small business. Why? Because Nevada is made up 94% of small businesses. It's something that we do well and we do right. And we do it from small businesses all the way through our union workers, through the casinos that take care of all the union workers, and everything that's great about this country is represented in our state. We have an amazing democratic form of government where we all make decisions together for what's best for our communities. And when a president sends a social media messages and sends my coffee prices through the roof, there is a great problem in our country. That does not make any sense at all. I don't think when the founding fathers got together, they really thought that a president could have that ability to just upend our economy and upend our day-to-day stabilities that we're looking for. So just something as simple as, I went into business thinking that it is something that was offered to me. It's an opportunity that our country provides for us. It's an avenue for me to grow my income and take care of my family. And I believed it was stable. What this has shown me is that when a president can upend everything, there's no stability within my life, within my business, and within my family and the future of my family. When a person has to be careful
Good men allow
with
this
what
to
they
happen.
say and ask all of us to be careful, but the president is not careful what they say, how much respect is he giving to the people in our country? How much respect am I being given as a person who owns a business? I'm grateful that I am a strong business person and we have great systems in place, but I can't control tariffs. I can't control gas prices. I can't control wars, and it impacts my business. At one point, we had an employee come to us who is getting a degree at UNLV, and he was concerned. He was going to graduate with a psychology degree. We're very proud of him. He cannot afford to go to school because he can't afford the gas prices to go across town after work. So we as a business sat down and said, okay, what would it look like if we gave everyone a $2 an hour raise, right? $2. It's not much. If you work 40 hours a week, that's $80 in your pocket a week, right? It was going to be an additional $600,000 to our company and our payroll, and it would wipe out the 5% net profit margins we've made this year. I would actually be underwater as a business. These are the margins that small businesses are dealing with daily. These are the reasons why thousands of small businesses have gone out, they've gone out of business in our state because of this president. Because we do care. We are part of the community. We're part of our employees' lives. We're part of our teachers' lives. We're part of everyone's lives. But we can't do anything about it because everything's out of our hands. I had the great opportunity. We're about to open a business, a cafe on the Strip, which is really wonderful. Well, when we went first for construction cost, it was going to cost X amount, right? Like $600,000. Now it's going to be close to $1 million. Why? Because people who are legally here in our country are afraid to show up. So there's not enough workers. Why are we threatening people who want to come and work and who want to try hard? Why are we breaking apart our country from the inside? I feel like the president acts like a private equity company. He bought the country and he's demolishing it from the inside out. And the only people that are hurting are ourselves. And that really breaks my heart as a small business owner. Sorry, I get very, very excited when I talk about these things. What I like to see is what we do in our state done in our country. I love the fact that our casinos they have great DEI policies, MGM. It's giving me an opportunity to create a new revenue channel. We have a coffee catering business right now that allows us to go into conventions, and there's better profit margins there. That allows us to take care of our company and our 130 employees. I love to see more of this across the board, because at the end of the day, America was built on small business. It was built on the vision that if we come here, or if we're born here and we have access to free education and we try hard, that we could take care of ourselves, we could take care of our community, and we could take care of our people. I hope that that's the country that I see in the future, because that's the country I believe in. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Sherman, you're now recognized for your testimony.
Thank you. Thank
Ranking
you.
Member Garcia and members of Congress, thank you for the opportunity today to outline some of the real costs of President Trump's stunning corruption on everyday Americans. My name is Donald Sherman. I am president of Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, an organization dedicated to fighting corruption and promoting ethical government. In the wake of revelations that Donald Trump earned over $2 billion monetizing the presidency in 2025, more money than he made during his entire first term, today's hearing is especially timely. While folks in Nevada and across the country struggled with the cost of basics like gas, groceries, and healthcare, 2025 was the most lucrative year of Trump's life. 2026 has brought little relief for most, and the president's self-enrichment comes at a direct cost to the people he was elected to serve. Imagine, for example, going to the doctor to discuss your child's health, and they spend the entire appointment day trading. Imagine taking a cab to the airport, and your driver stops to hit the slots machines and leaves the meter running to boot. That's what Nevadans and the rest of the country are experiencing from their government right now. The American economy remains on shaky ground, and President Trump is focused on making money for himself rather than addressing the financial challenges of working families. According to an analysis by Crew, Trump has created 59 companies since winning the White House in 2024, generating at least $233 million in revenue in 2025. The president has hosted lavish events for investors in his crypto empire, which netted him $1.4 billion last year. He is holding the G20 summit in Miami so that his business can benefit, when cities like Las Vegas could also use the economic boost. And then there is the direct profiteering by Trump, his family, and his cronies off of your hard-earned money. Trump's golf trips alone have cost more than $100 million in taxpayer funds, most of which has gone to his own resorts. A defense company tied to Don Jr. got a $620 million loan from the Pentagon after a White House advisor reportedly intervened. The president's sons are investing in companies that make drones and other defense technologies, as our national and economic security remain at risk from the president's war in Iran. American workers and businesses are continuing to suffer the costs of this corruption. Energy prices are soaring, while President Trump's industry allies profit from favorable Trump policies. The administration has routinely invoked special powers to award government contracts to Trump's preferred vendors, leaving other businesses in the cold. More than half of the contracts canceled by DOGE, an effort led by his biggest political donor, Elon Musk, were held by small businesses, including here in Nevada. Despite FOIA litigation from Crew and a request from Nevada's congressional delegation, the administration is fighting to shield DOGE from transparency still. The president's gutting of the federal workforce has also hindered efforts to combat fraud against everyday Americans. Of particular concern is the hollowing out of the Justice Department, which lost around 10,000 employees and closed over 900 cases of federal program or procurement fraud last year. Those cuts have a direct harm on folks working to make ends meet. According to one study, in 2024, financial fraud cost Americans $195 billion, with over $138 million in losses to Nevadans. That's a median loss of over $500, real money to any working family. Meanwhile, the president has enabled fraudsters and wiped out payments owed to fraud victims by pardoning his cronies. Not only is the president enabling corporate crime, many senior Trump appointees are abusing their positions and taxpayer dollars for personal financial gain. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy took his family on a road trip funded by corporations regulated by his agency as DOT reversed measures that help compensate travelers for airline delays and cancellations. Former Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem spent $200 million in taxpayer funds for 2 private luxury jets. These are just a few examples. In closing, Congress can advance the fight against corruption by conducting aggressive oversight, protecting civil servants, and passing legislation that prohibits presidential profiteering. It can also bolster ethics within its own ranks by passing the bipartisan Restore Trust in Congress Act that bans members and their families from trading individual stocks. Corruption not only undermines faith in government, it inflicts direct harms on the public that demand congressional action. I look forward to answering your questions on how to do just that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thanks again to all of our witnesses for the testimony. We're now going to have an opportunity for members to ask questions and make some additional comments. So I'm going to recognize myself first for some questions, and then we'll start with Congressman Frost second.
Okay.
Now, something that you've all mentioned is we know that the president has claims that affordability is some sort of hoax. And I think it's so telling that he just won't admit that there's a real affordability crisis going on right now in this country. Now, Ms. Pancotti, in August of 2024, Trump promised to cut energy and electrical prices by 50% within 12 to 18 months. Did that happen?
No, in fact, in his first year in office, electricity prices rose by 10%.
Have Trump's policies on clean energy made actually the life more affordable for Americans?
No.
What about the cost of new homes? In September of 24, Trump promised to cut the cost of homes in half. Has that happened?
No, he promised that 2% mortgage rates would come back. And right now, a 30-year mortgage sits at about 6.5%.
Now, the president also is now deporting hardworking construction workers, and there's tariffs, of course, on building materials. Does any of that actually make building new homes less expensive?
No, in fact, it raises the price of those. And you've seen many home builders abandon projects because they don't pencil out.
Now, this year, Congress passed one of the most important housing bills in years. Did the president actually sign this housing bill into law to make the cost of housing go down?
No.
So he's claimed he cares about housing, but has the president actually done anything in his actions to make housing more affordable?
No, everything he has done has driven up the price of housing.
Now, does the president's policies on tariffs, deportations, farm workers, or even the war in Iran, has any of that made groceries less expensive?
No, in fact, it has driven them up.
Mr. Papageorge, we know that the president's $2 gas promise was a lie, but you can tell now as we look around that the surging prices actually are hurting working people here in Las Vegas. Can you briefly just share what's happening with prices as it relates to affordability for workers?
Let's just talk about gas. One, just the idea that it takes such a much larger chunk out of your household income than it did before is a significant hit for our members. But for Las Vegas as a tourism capital, Southern California is the lifeblood of Las Vegas, and the travelers that drive to Las Vegas have the driving is down. The cost of gas is a significant issue. So the reality is that all those promises about gas going down, it's completely opposite, and it has been very harmful for our members. And that's a piece of the Trump slump. This idea that our folks are ended up having less hours and layoffs because less folks are coming to Vegas, and gas prices are a big part of that.
Great. Well, thank you. Now, Mr. Sherman, we've been talking about all of these challenges facing the American public, but I want to talk about the president and actually the way he's profiting off American suffering across this country. Now, the president has earned more than $2 billion in office. Is that correct?
In his first year of 2025, yes.
First year, over $2 billion. Can you estimate maybe how much the entire Trump family has made?
It's a good question. Part of the reason why I can't give you a hard answer is because unlike the president's sons and Jared Kushner have not filed financial disclosure statements. And so you have somebody like Kushner who's going across the world as this envoy on behalf of the government. Meanwhile, he is, also soliciting money from sovereign wealth funds across the country, and he's not reporting what he's making. So certainly it is more money than they have ever made, and it is to the tune of billions, but we don't have a lot of transparency into how much they're making, and I'm hoping that Congress can actually get some answers.
So just to clarify, I mean, this is really corruption, direct corruption in the American presidency. You have the president's family potentially making, could be billions, could be hundreds of millions by some estimates and some organizations, in contracts, in loans, in crypto schemes, while the American public and their costs in gas and groceries and food continues to go up. Now, we also know, I think, and I want to ask Mr. Sherman, it's correct that there's upwards of possibly up to 60 companies that have been created generating all sorts of revenue for the president and his family. Is that correct?
That's right. Since President Trump became the presumptive nominee for president in March of 2024, he has created 74 businesses. He's created 59 since he won the White House in 2024, 34 since taking the oath of office, and 12 just this year.
And is it also true that the president's son, Donald Jr., has been involved in boards and companies that are winning contracts from the Department of Defense?
Yes, one of the things that we have seen is that companies that are seeking to get contracts from or gain access to the upper levels of this administration are recruiting the president's sons to their boards, to their businesses, and then all of a sudden they end up getting contracts. They end up getting loans. As I mentioned, one company tied to Don Jr. got a loan from DOD for $620 million.
And then finally, on Mr. Kushner, is it also true that Mr. Kushner received a $2 billion investment into his startup company after the first White House from the Saudis?
That's exactly right. He is heavily invested in the Middle East, or I'd rather say the countries in the Middle East are heavily invested in him as he is representing the United States abroad in the same region.
So as Middle East companies pour in billions of dollars into his investment firm, he represents the United States to the Middle East as a lead envoy. Is that correct?
Yes, it is a stunning conflict of interest and a national security threat to boot.
So I think, to conclude, I just want the people of Nevada, but really across the country, to really know that we have this administration and this family that is becoming infinitely more rich. The wealth continues to skyrocket at the expense of hardworking people that are struggling. That is corruption. That is not right. And that's what we're here to stop. And thank you with that. And with that, I'm going to pass this over to Congressman Frost.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Utility prices are insane. They are insane right now. I'm paying the most I've ever paid, especially to cool my home, something Orlando and Vegas have in common.
He's one of the youngest people in Congress. I think he's like 25 or 26 or something like that. One of the youngest people that has gotten into Congress.
It is hot as hell. And during the summer months, it becomes more and more and more expensive to make our homes livable due to the rising energy costs. And part of the reason is because the Trump administration has canceled funding for a whole litany of clean energy products that would have provided power quickly at a fraction of their current costs. In fact, since President Trump took office, household electric bills have risen 16% nationally and a lot higher in a lot of hotter states like Nevada and Florida. Ms. Pancati, what does a 16% increase in electricity costs mean for a family here in Las Vegas that is already struggling to pay for groceries, their rent, their mortgage, their gas, and other necessities?
Unfortunately, for so many families, it is a choice of paying to keep your home cool when it's 107 degrees outside, or paying a medical bill. It is the choice between filling your fridge or keeping the lights on. And in Florida, regulators actually just approved the largest utility rate hike in United States history, which will add more than $200 a year to Floridians' electric bills.
Thank you. I mean, at a time when the country desperately needs more electricity online, the Trump administration is only making it harder. They've canceled or stalled clean energy projects that would have produced enough electricity to power the equivalent of 17 million homes. And these aren't just abstract numbers. This is about like people's paychecks. It's about their health. It's about their well-being. Electricity is essential to stay safe in extreme heat. And like people here in Nevada experience and people in my home state of Florida experience, when temperatures reach dangerous levels, families can't just turn off the AC to save money. And families living in older, poorly insulated homes don't have options to reduce their electricity consumption. Families who are already struggling should not have to make the difficult decision between keeping their homes cool in record high temperatures and paying for necessities like grocery and gas. Another question for you. Nearly 144,000 clean energy jobs have already been lost or stalled since President Trump's election. What does this mean for the workers and communities affected by these canceled and delayed projects?
Yes, as you mentioned, since the start of 2025, more than 200 major clean energy projects have been canceled, closed, or downsized. That is somewhat due to the repeal of the Inflation Reduction Act's clean energy tax credits by the Republican budget law last summer, and also due to tariffs and immigration policies and interest rates, which have all unfortunately affected whether or not these projects pencil out. This not only affects utility bills, but will also cost nearly 500,000 jobs across the country. That means that for many of those Americans, it is the difference between a paycheck, much less your $200 electricity bill. I want to also say that, unfortunately, the massive build out of AI data centers has really constrained our grid, and utility costs are rising for working families while those companies are turning to fossil fuels instead of clean energy. And we know that Elon Musk's xAI is actually using 50 gas turbines to power its Mississippi data center, which not only affects the surrounding community in terms of health effects, but also drives up electricity rates.
Something the president and Republicans in Congress love to talk about is waste, fraud, and abuse. Is it wasteful to pull the rug underneath a project that not only the federal government has invested money in, but local governments and other companies have invested money into?
Yes, to the tune of billions of dollars.
And it's not just about, it's about workers and families, but it's also the fact that America has energy needs. And it is dangerous when we continue to just focus in on dirty fossil fuels. It's also not good for our national security. When we don't produce more clean electricity from domestic sources, we leave Americans more exposed to fossil fuel markets and global energy shocks. Mr. Sherman, when the administration cancels affordable clean energy projects while families are paying more for electricity, who benefits from those type of decisions?
Well, I think what has been borne out is that industry benefits, but also the president has benefited, to the tune of, I think, up to at least $15.5 million based on his stock portfolio in the oil and gas industry. So it's not just that, his campaign backers in the in the energy sector are benefiting, but the president is directly benefiting himself at the expense of everyday Americans.
This is one of the most important parts of all the policies that the president is pushing. It's not, I think sometimes, you're sitting at home, all the costs are rising, you're seeing the horrible things that the president is doing, and you wonder, is it, it's his ideology or this and that, or maybe he's just plain evil, or it's because he wants to make money. It's because at the end of the day, he is trying to make more resources. What's the most lucrative thing the president of the United States has ever done in his life?
Win the White House.
The most lucrative thing the president of the United States has ever done in his life is public service. It's disgraceful and disgusting, especially when people can't afford to live in this country. Thank you, and I yield back, and we will recognize Representative Randall.
Thank you so much.
Not even it's
On
truth time.
July 4th, 2025, congressional Republicans and Trump enacted the largest healthcare cut in the history of our country, slashing over $1 trillion from Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act with the big ugly bill. A mind-boggling 8 million Americans have already lost healthcare coverage after 1 year of the largest healthcare cut in history, a healthcare cut that was made to bankroll tax breaks for billionaires and big corporations, Donald Trump's friends and supporters. This is just the beginning of the coverage loss. 17 million more will likely lose coverage once the deeper cuts go into effect in 2027. Already, hospitals and clinics here in Las Vegas, in my home district in Washington, and across the country are facing closure, workers being laid off, or positions unfilled. Patients are losing insurance coverage. New moms, kids, rural communities, people with disabilities, working families are all feeling the strain. One of my constituents in Aberdeen, Washington, a former teacher who is disabled by an aggressive autoimmune disease and now depends on daily medication to manage rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, and thyroid disease after surviving cancer. She wrote to us, her husband has been laid off 3 times in 5 years. And with their savings running low and a child still at home, they're worried about keeping their home, paying their bills, and most of all, being able to afford the life-saving medications that they need every day. Stories like these aren't surprising to most of us. I fight for healthcare access because I was a little girl when my sister was born with complex disabilities, and Medicaid saved her life, allowed her to live for 19 years. But even with that coverage, it was still complicated for my mom, for my dad to navigate the system, to fill out all the right paperwork, to make sure that when she got one first denial of claim, that she filled out the right paperwork afterwards so that her second insurance would kick in and cover something and we didn't go into debt. Finding in-home respite care providers to make sure that Olivia had the care she needed was not easy when we have a shortage of those providers because we weren't paying them enough, because they didn't have benefits, because they hadn't yet unionized in Washington. But while Republicans are crying waste, fraud, and abuse on the individual families who are trying to navigate a complicated system that is getting defunded as we speak, they are getting richer. Ms. Mallory Edmondson, you talked a little bit about this, but personally or professionally, how have you seen the experience of patients in your line of work change while navigating this complex system under this administration?
Affordability has a direct impact on what we see at the bedside. When patients can't afford care, they delay treatment, skip medications, and sometimes come to us much sicker than they needed to be. And even when we provide excellent care, if a patient can't afford their medications or follow-up care when they leave, that treatment plan can fall apart. So for me, affordability is very simple. A patient's ability to get well should not depend on their ability to pay.
Absolutely. That's what all of us want, the ability to count on the care that we need. The Kaiser Family Foundation estimated that about 41% of adults have reported having debt due to medical or dental bills, including debts owed to credit cards, collection agencies, families, friends, banks, and other lenders to pay for healthcare costs. They're going into debt to get healthcare in the wealthiest country in the world. And this is disproportionately impacting Black and Brown families, Latino communities, women, parents, those with low incomes, and uninsured adults. How do you see these costs increasing in your patients' cases? And are you concerned about medical debt impacting the folks that you're just trying to care for?
I am very concerned.
It's
Nevada hospitals are projected to lose $300 million in the fiscal year 2028 and $507 million in 2029 in supplemental Medicaid payments. Some estimates put private hospital losses as high as 600 to 800 million.
I mean, every healthcare provider I talk to is worried about how they can continue to operate, how they can continue to see the patients who come into their doors sicker and sicker because they're losing coverage, while they also keep their doors open. They're having to make tough decisions about which service lines to close and whether or not they're going to be able to keep delivering babies because Medicare and Medicaid patients are at risk. The rising cost of uncompensated care of the uninsured population is going to do damage to a healthcare system that was already struggling before the big ugly bill, was already struggling before the cuts were made, especially in low-income communities, especially in Black and Brown communities, especially in rural communities. And the people of this country deserve us to fight for them, deserve to be able to rely on healthcare. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Congressman Horsford.
Thank you very much to our witnesses. Ms. Romero, I want to start with you. First, thank you for your passion and bringing insight into the effects that these policies have been having on small businesses like yours and being such a champion for small businesses here in Nevada, which are the engines of our economy in large part. I cannot imagine, though, how much in tariffs you have had to pay, either directly or indirectly. The type of business that you have, the supplies that you buy, that is one of the reasons that I introduced this bill called the Relief Act, because once the Supreme Court deemed that these tariffs were illegal, the money had to be returned, but there wasn't a clear mechanism for how that money gets returned, especially to small businesses and to the people who paid it in higher prices. So it's been months since the Supreme Court ruled that the government took this money unlawfully, yet this administration is now appealing the order to give all refunds back. Just think about that for a minute. They imposed these chaotic tariffs that raised the cost on everything. They lost in the Supreme Court under this Supreme Court, and they're appealing the decision, trying to not even return the money. And yet the president himself said refunds could take years, and his Secretary of Treasury has said the same thing. So, Ms. Romero, does a shop like yours have the resources to litigate for years to get money back that was unlawfully collected from you and your business?
Not at all. Litigation is a very fun fact of our economy, but unfortunately, there's only been one importer that actually provided refunds on the tariffs, and I think it's because they're actually a decent business and they wanted to do what was right. The rest, we haven't seen anything.
Yeah, and that's also why I've been calling on corporate America, especially to refund and give rebates. If they got the money, they need to push that savings down to small businesses and consumers who ultimately paid it. This administration really should be working to return that money to Nevadans and people all across the country. And it's why I'm going to continue to work with members of this committee and others on the Relief Act, which would require automatic tariff refunds for businesses like yours. Would receiving those tariff refunds actually mean help for Mothership Coffee and the people you employ?
100%. If we had access to extra funds that were due to us, I can go and finalize our Launchpad program. One of the things that we believe in is we don't hire employees, we hire the next generation of great leaders. And our philosophy on our culture and how we develop our employees is through that lens. We could actually help them pay for school credits, or we like to say like side hustles. You know, if you want to become an artist or a sticker maker, or you want to learn how to crochet and become a solo entrepreneur. We want to find ways to help our employees be able to learn to do those things so they can move on from our company and do really great things in our country.
Thank you. Mr. Papa George, thank you for highlighting the effect of this administration's policies on your workers and our industry. The 3.1 million fewer visitors, Canadian visitation alone being down 17%. But you also have a lot of workers who are being affected by TPS and are now facing deportation. Tourists fear that their visas will be revoked because of a social media post. The fact is that even legal workers, those with green cards, fear that they will be targeted by ICE because of the color of their skin or their language. So can you speak to what your members are experiencing because of these Trump policies? Are workers losing shifts, getting fewer hours, or earning fewer tips? And can you speak to what those impacts mean for a worker that's already struggling to pay rent and childcare and groceries?
Thank you, Congressman. I think that to look at the large picture of it first, just that, look, this immigration system has been broken for a long time. I think we all understand that. But it's gone to a new level because, look, this is the greatest economy in the world, and we need workers. And we have to have workers. And through the various, whether it's TPS, asylum, DACA, things that where there have been ways to right what has been historic wrongs, they're pieces of the puzzle, but it's really not attacking the issue in the right way. Look, we've got to figure out how these millions of workers who are here otherwise law-abiding, an essential piece of our economy, have status to be able to work in some way. And that's a discussion that needs to happen. So first of all, just in large scale, that's just has to be job one amongst a couple other things of Democrats in after this election. For TPS workers, it's even more critical. These are workers that have, whether it's cartels, hurricanes, dictatorships, these are folks that have been welcomed to this country to work and to raise their families, and to go back home is dangerous. These are folks that are part of our neighborhoods. Their kids go to our schools. They go to our churches with us. So it's inhumane, number one. But there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of workers in our industry here in Las Vegas, whether Venezuelan, Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, Salvadorian, and others, for the last several decades that have become an integral part of this workforce to help make this giant engine and economy move. So one, it's inhumane. Two, part of the reason our economy is in trouble is because you're going after the very source for the workers that this country needs to be able to prosper. So it is just a pretzel logic sort of program here. Everybody understands that there are criminals out there, but there's a tiny percentage of our immigrant workforce that is here that are undocumented that are those criminals. We all agree they should go with due process. But the workers that are here, and to be clear, the TPS statuses that are being revoked right now means that hundreds of thousands of workers that were here illegally with status, working in our Las Vegas casinos, working in our small businesses, working all over, are overnight undocumented. And it is just a travesty. And there are a few things we have to do. One, we've got to tackle the correct nomenclature, the big ugly bill, Congresswoman Randall, and I know that you say Congressman Horsford, that big ugly bill and the subsidies for healthcare. Our members are getting hammered on healthcare and it's sucking up all the money. There's nothing left for wages. Those have to be reinstituted. This the immigration system, we've got to fix status for our TPS workers and other workers we need for this economy. And we've got to go after this price gouging, this terrible, unaffordable economy that the president has made even worse.
Thank you. Next is Representative Titus.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to go back to something my colleague, Mr. Frost, was talking about with the energy bills. You know, not only has Nevada had some of its solar projects cut when they cut those back, but that brings down the cost. It saves the planet. We're not using oil and gas or coal. We're using things that are renewable instead. And it's good IBEW jobs that build those facilities. So it hits you all around. And in addition to that, at the same time that's happening, the LIHEAP programs are being cut. And a lot of people in Nevada rely on those low income energy assistance programs to help them pay the power bills. And so it's a twofer, you know, you're getting it at both ends. You know, you've heard talk about all the corruption and the graft and in the administration. And now you've got the president not only buying up companies, creating companies, investing companies, getting grants for friends companies, but he's going to sell his tweets or whatever they are now, whatever they're called now, in advance to companies for $100,000 a month, like a subscription, so they'll know which businesses he's going to put his thumb on so they can do insider trading. I mean, isn't that kind of accurate that's going on as well?
Certainly, yeah, the True Social scheme is illegal. And just another example, and perhaps the best example of how the president is monetizing access to government information. This is an unprecedented scheme to make money off of the fact that this president is president of the United States, that Donald Trump, the owner of True Social, is also president of the United States.
Truth Social, that's what it's called now. I think I've just blocked it out. Well, thank you. Well, I want to go back to, it's a kind of a combination here. Which companies is he favoring and putting the thumb on and investing in? And one of the things that we're seeing lately is a lot of promotion of data centers. You brought up the data centers, Ms. Pancody, and we are certainly seeing that as an issue that is growing across the country. We are seeing it here in Nevada, right out here at little Boulder City. There was an episode with wanting to put a data center on public lands. Now, this is the first time they've used public lands to site a data center anywhere in the country. So it's going to set some precedent. They also wanted to use an environmental study that they did for a solar plant and just say, well, that's okay for a data center too. They also want to get the tax abatements that are allowed for not having to pay certain state taxes, which takes resources away from the state, who's now got to pick up the burden because these programs have been cut at the federal level. And you think Medicaid and SNAP at the top of that list, and so many other things too. So they're not getting the benefits. It's on public land, so they're not having the oversight. They're not going to get any tax revenue for this little community. And people are worried that it's going to increase their power bills. Now, you mentioned that in your testimony and said that y'all have done some study about this impact of data centers. Now, add insult to injury, they're talking about creating their own power plants and even using small nuclear reactors to power these. Now, if you don't want a data center in your backyard, you sure as hell don't want a nuclear power plant out there next to Boulder City. So, I mean, it just has all these rippling effects. Would you talk to us a little bit about the impact on affordability in addition to the impact on heat and water, for example, and just the planet?
Yes, thank you for the question, Congresswoman. Researchers have found that data center demand for electricity will push electricity costs around the country by as much as 57% in some places. The biggest data center hub in the world is located in the energy market PJM, which goes from Virginia to Chicago. And in that market, the independent watchdog has found that data center growth is the primary reason recent power prices have spiked. And it found that data centers centers drove $29 billion in new costs, nearly half of all new costs around the region, which is likely going to land on the monthly bills of families in Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Maryland, and New Jersey. Unfortunately, for the vast majority of those people in those communities, they get no say about these projects. And as you mentioned, their local governments are often enacting, or state governments are often enacting tax breaks for these data centers. In Boulder City, the city lost $2.5 million that could have paid for important municipal costs. And unfortunately, I think that lost revenue from local, state, and the federal government is really something policymakers are going to have to reckon with as the data center build out continues. You mentioned specifically that some companies are looking at what we call behind the meter investments, which is basically that they create their own grid separate from the grid that all of our houses, many factories in this country are on. Those grids are in serious need of investments to make them clean, make them more reliable, and make utility rates fall for working families. And what they are in many cases proposing to do is create their own kind of second-class grid that will be better, faster, more reliable, and cheaper for themselves, while we are all stuck with the dilapidated one. And I think that policymakers really need to look at something that looks like how we fund our our highway system, for example, and have a national trust fund for our grid to make sure that tech companies pay the cost of their data centers. And one last thing I'll just say, actually, recent polling shows that people are more favorable towards a nuclear power plant in their community than they are towards a data center, which I think should give
That's
all
interesting.
policymakers a wake-up call about just the impacts that these data centers are having on local water, local noise, and local energy.
Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you, Congresswoman Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Ranking Member. Mr. Papageorge, thank you for your leadership of culinary. And I know we've had a conversation many times about no tax on tips. And in fact, the president was here just a few weeks ago talking about that policy. And I want to clear up a few things about that. First of all, isn't it correct that this delegation had a bill on no tax on tips that was permanent, that had unanimously passed the Senate and was awaiting a vote on the floor of the House?
Yes, that is correct. And that bill addressed significant shortcomings of this Republican big ugly bill that actually went through.
And in fact, it was permanent, correct? And didn't have the marital penalty as well.
Yes, that is correct. And this marital penalty is significant. It's very common for tip earners. This is our industry, this hospitality industry, and tip earners to two tip earners to be married. And that 100% penalty is huge. And yes, the Democrats had passed it. It was sitting there and had support, and the president ignored it.
Not only that, the speaker could have brought that exact bill to the floor, just a clean bill for a vote, and it had passed the Senate unanimously. But what he chose to do instead was include it in the one big, beautiful bill. And we all know what that did, made healthcare more expensive, cut SNAP benefits for our most vulnerable citizens and neighbors and young kids, ripped away healthcare from millions of Americans. So taking all of that into account, can you tell me, given, not only the increased tariffs now leading to the Trump slump, where we're seeing fewer visitors come to our community. So on top of all that, when you talk to your members, can you tell us, of the 60,000 union members that you represent, are they better off or worse off today?
Well, they are certainly worse off today. And I would just say there is a healthcare crisis right now. And, the emperor has no clothes on this one. The Republicans have no answer on this. And our Nevada delegation, I want to say jointly, thank you for being warriors in healthcare, and Democrats overall. This big ugly bill, by stripping away all those healthcare costs, ended up costing our members through these additional costs now that are being borne significantly. And so again, yes, our members are not better off now, and they're quite concerned about how this year right now is going to end up even worse.
You know, and that's interesting. We've seen figures that a family, since Trump has been in office, it's cost a family an average of $3,300 more in costs a year. But let's talk about gas. I know you hit on it a little bit. Gas prices since this unwanted war in Iran that is unauthorized by Congress. Gas has gone up over $5 a gallon. I think the average is about $4.81 here in Nevada, not to mention the impact it's had on California. But let's talk about what it means for your members too on a personal basis. What impact has that had?
Well, I've been having conversations with our members, and they've been very blunt about that. They think that the cause of stupid wars and stupid tariffs has made sure that the cost to their own pocketbooks are through the roof, whether it's gas or also the double hit because as tourism is suffering. And so our members, through these higher prices throughout, whether it's jet fuel or diesel fuel or gas for tourists to drive to Las Vegas, means that our folks are suffering. Less hours, less work, layoffs, hiring froze. And it's across the country. It's not just in Las Vegas. And we've got to tackle this.
Absolutely. Ms. Romero, I know that you are passionate about supporting your employees. I'd loved hearing about the types of support you like to have for them to pursue other interests. You know, and as a mother yourself, you understand the pressure that's put on working parents, and from time constraints of balancing work and taking care of your kids to the increased cost of school supplies, clothing, food, gas. I mean, parents are really being stretched. And in Nevada, we also have an additional barrier, additional stress for parents, which is childcare and the shortage of affordable childcare. Can you just talk through on all of that? How is that impacting the employees that you care so deeply about?
Well, I can definitely start with me. Our company just passed about making about $11 million this year. And I can say this week that I've overdrafted my bank account. Childcare is very expensive. And a lot of my employees are deferring having children or deciding not to have children.
That's crazy.
And it's not because they're, you know, some of the ideas we have around young people or they're selfish or this or that. It's just literally because they don't see a way for them to have the lifestyle that we were expected to have growing up. They don't see a way to make that happen. And I know that I have friends in the business as well who've come up with very innovative ways to do that. I did a panel recently and Ichiza, another great local restaurant chain, they're looking at ways to build a daycare center for their Japanese community and their workers. And so when a government fails to protect our citizens and find ways for them to have the livelihood that they deserve, we're lucky that we still have small businesses that are willing to come up and meet the gap. But we really need the support from you guys to make sure that it happens, because our young people are definitely not having children.
Absolutely. And, you know, that was actually my next question, the impact you've seen on your young employees. But, you know, with respect to childcare, of course, in a state like ours where we have childcare deserts and it's more expensive to have childcare for your 4-year-old than to send them to college. That's why I was proud to introduce my Childcare Investment Act, which will help us build additional childcare facilities so we can open up more slots and bring down the cost of childcare. You know, and again, I think the thing that is most striking to me is just the sense of loss of hope for young people in this country because of what they're seeing as policies coming out of this administration that really is sort of putting up roadblocks everywhere they turn. Phyllis, I'd like to turn to you with a quick question. One of the things we saw in the One Big Beautiful Bill was the repeal of the ACA tax subsidies. Now, listen, this administration, in its first administration, was very intent on repealing the ACA completely. That would have made healthcare unaffordable for kids under the age of 26 who can now have the ability to stay on their parents' healthcare. It would rip away healthcare that, we sort of all take this for granted now, that if you have a pre-existing condition before the ACA was passed, you wouldn't have been able to even get healthcare, like my parents who could not afford healthcare after my father lost his job. And so, but this administration, in another attempt, tore away the ACA tax subsidies in the One Big Beautiful Bill. And the thing that's so cynical about that is the money that the federal government would save from that, they put in a bucket, and in that bucket, they said, hey, if you're wealthy, we'll give you a permanent tax cut to the wealthiest Americans. But I want to ask you, Phyllis, this raises costs for all of us, but what are you seeing and what are your coworkers seeing as the impact it has to the ability to deliver care in this community now that the ACA tax subsidies have been eliminated?
An estimated 70,000 to 100,000 Nevadans are projected to lose Medicaid coverage in the first 2 years alone, once work requirements take effect January 1st, 2027. 280,000 Nevadans on ACA expansion Medicaid will have to prove 80 hours of work a month, school, or voluntary to keep their coverage, even though about 2/3 already work. Nevada Community Health Centers serve 128,000 people in 2024 and expect to lose 17 million a year in about 107 full-time jobs.
Yeah, so it comes down to loss of jobs, loss of the ability of our health centers to keep their doors open as well. So we're already struggling with the primary care shortage here in the state. And so when we start to see, especially in rural areas, hospitals and health centers close down, it makes that even more desperate for so many of Nevadans. So again, this is an administration that is hell-bent on making life more difficult, less affordable for working Nevadans. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And I want to, just as we close, I think we've had some really great questions, of course, in testimony. I want to thank all of our witnesses for your incredible work in the community and for being here today. I also want to thank our media partners that have been streaming this hearing as well. And of course, just to the members that are here, especially from our Nevada delegation, just thank you for your leadership and your constant focus on reminding our caucus how important affordability has to be every single day and really central to all of our work. And to conclude, it's important for us to know as we go into November and next year that House Democrats, not just those of us on the Oversight Committee, but our entire caucus is committed to ensuring that affordability is the central theme and goal of what we're going to do and work on, whether that is through forward-looking legislation or whether that is through accountability and investigations. Affordability will be at the center of what we do. And so thank you all for being here, and we appreciate all of you who participated in our hearing today. Thanks so much.
All right. So after watching this hearing, here's what I want everybody to take away, right? Democrats weren't just sitting there talking about some abstract political arguments, right? They were laying out what is happening in Trump's America, asking the questions Congress is supposed to ask when the decisions coming out of the White House start affecting everyday Americans. And I know some people will watch a hearing like this and immediately make it Republican versus Democrat. Take the party name off of it for a minute. If your government is making decisions that affect your job, grocery bill, healthcare, retirement, your rights or the amount of money coming out of your pocket, shouldn't somebody be demanding an explanation? Where's our money going to? That's what oversight is supposed to do. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. What stood out to me today was how many of these issues eventually come back to the same thing: accountability. Who made the decision? Why did they make the decision? Who benefits from it? Who gets hurt by it? And when something doesn't add up, are we supposed to stop asking questions simply because the president doesn't like us asking questions? My whole thing is this: government is supposed to make people's life better. They're supposed to make your life better, help your life be better. Is this government, is this administration making the lives of Americans better? Don't give me the bullshit about immigration. Some of y'all ain't never met an immigrant. Y'all don't know nothing about immigrants. Immigrants ain't taking your job. Immigrants ain't doing nothing against you. So I don't want to hear the bullshit about immigrants. What is it other than this immigration thing are they doing to help your life? And most people can't give you the answer. Nobody has an answer. So the way I look at it is they're not doing their job. Okay? They're not doing their job. Donald Trump has an enormous power as the president, but the presidency was never designed to operate without scrutiny. Congress has a responsibility to watch the executive branch and investigate it and challenge it and demand answers, records, the whole nine. It ain't a harassment. It's their job. So when you hear people complaining that the Democrats are investigating too much, that's their job. That is their job, to refuse to let Trump just do whatever he wants to do. I don't care whether Donald Trump got an R or a D in front of his name. If you're spending our money, changing our government, making decisions that affect all of us, and exercising power in our name, we should be able to hold you accountable. Okay? And the answers don't make sense. If the answers don't make sense, we keep answering the questions. That's my takeaway from this meeting. People keep saying, well, why they keep talking about Trump? We don't know what he's doing with our money. Seems like they keep spending like drunken sailors to me. Like they keep spending all of our money. And we can't get nothing. We can't get health care. We can't get Medicaid. We can't get free college. We can't get nothing. So somebody need to be asked a question. All this savings of money. Those were supposed to save money. Everybody was supposed to save money. Okay, why were we saving money? Just to go to war? I thought we were saving money so our country could have some things. Our country could have health care. Our country could have free school. Our country could have whatever. Don't seem like we saving no money. Just seems like we piling on to me. I don't know about nobody else, but that's what it seemed like to me. So, hey, we got to hold them accountable. So, I appreciate you guys showing up. Please hit the like and the share. I appreciate it. I will be back tomorrow morning with what are they doing with our horses? What are they feeding us? All of that beef that's coming from another country. What country? Please hit the like and the share button and be here tomorrow morning. The all notification button for the content we will have tomorrow morning. And I will see you guys in the next video. I appreciate all of you guys for showing up this evening. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys. I do.